let's give this a shot. I'm gonna make sure that I can actually share this stuff to all my media sources. So appreciate y'all standing by. I know last time I did a live stream, obviously we will begin shortly, as you can tell. But I noticed the last time I did a live stream that I wasn't able to keep up with the comments, and that's definitely a thing. So we'll see if we can correct that error this time. So appreciate y'all bearing with me here. um, this should be super interesting. So obviously we're gonna check out the press briefing by Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Um, it's looking like she might be a little bit late, but who's surprised there, right? These folks are always late. Well, I hope that's not. Let's see. I was trying to make sure I can get this sent to every piece of everything that I've got. Press briefing. So we are live streaming on Twitch and Facebook and everywhere else. YouTube. Of course, can't forget YouTube. So let's yeah, that's what I wondered. All right, so then let's share this to Facebook. We'll make sure we can get that actually on the Facebook. See, this is why everybody has those screens where they make you stand by because they're playing with this stuff. You don't have time for that. Even the White House has it. We'll begin shortly. You know, they're over there just drinking coffee and laughing and joking and doing whatever it is that they're doing. Yeah, let's see if that worked. All right, cool. So on for Facebook. And obviously on for Twitch. Let's see, can we pull this off? Nope. It's all right, I got Twitch chat right there. Don't need all that. Bunch of nonsense blocking the goods. Pop out chat. There we go. So what happens if we put this over here and close this right here? Does that go too? Nope. Okay. I guess the only real thing I need is the Facebook chat because everything else is everywhere else. So, all right. So What's up, everybody? This is your boy Chainsaw. Got a little new format. I'm sure you saw. We're gonna be doing some kind of different things here when it comes to the live streams. The videos, just in general. A little bit of a different format. As far as how I'm structuring everything. Obviously, you know, haven't been posting as much as I wanted to because all this tech stuff is really, really hard, and I don't have a five-man crew like all the rest of your favorite, YouTube hits, right? So that's the thing. Haven't given up the Red Bulls, but definitely doing my best to at least take it easy on the smoking. So yeah, that's just what's going on with me here lately. But let's take a look at this. So obviously everybody saw, and if you're following me on Facebook, checking me on social media, obviously I've got these cool links for if you're not, between Instagram, Twitter, just started all this stuff. Instagram, Twitter, I got a TikTok now, obviously live streaming on Twitch also. So definitely hit me up. But here's the thing: if you've been watching what's been happening over the last couple of weeks, you know about all the craziness that's been going on in Texas. You saw the new legislation that's been going off the chain down there. So that's exciting, right? If you saw the press conference given by the president yesterday, wow, that was if you're on the left or the right, that was definitely an eye opener for you, and definitely something that should be grabbing people's attention. But just all in all, look, I've covered numerous times on this channel, all about the bang up job that Governor Mike Parson's been doing here at the state level. And, regarding COVID, regarding unemployment, regarding jobs, regarding healthcare, and that's the thing. So while we wait for, where is it? Let's see. Nope, not that. While we wait, we'll begin shortly with the press briefing here, which is like a good 40 minutes late. Not really sure what that's about, but we'll get into it. Let's see. What's going on with this thing? Is that cutting out real bad? All right. Let's see. Well, first take a look at what's going on in the market, because I don't know. The market fluctuates on uncertainty, right? We all know that. But here's the thing: with Biden's announcement yesterday, I mean, does that create uncertainty or does that create certainty? I myself would assume that the elimination of COVID will create certainty. Now, depending on how all of these folks who were not so happy about his remarks respond to that, I mean, let's just go into it. If there is a massive walkout, this obviously could affect our economy. This obviously could affect what happens, in the market. This obviously could affect industry. But I don't see that happening because, well, several reasons. First of all, the unemployment benefits, they're cut. So even if those folks could qualify for unemployment somehow through, I don't know, black magic, because we'll get into that. I guess that's a good place to start. So firstly, if there's a massive walkout because of the executive order that President Biden mentioned he will, push through, first things first, those folks do not qualify for unemployment, do not pass go, do not collect your $200. You will have already, as he mentioned, the first thing that happens is that gets pushed to HR. If you decide that you just don't want to get vaccinated, you don't want to take the test, then you can't provide a positive COVID test, that gets pushed straight to HR. They put you in for retraining. That happens too many times. HR is going to not want to screw with you no more. You're going to lose your job. You lose your job because you have an HR issue. Well, you don't qualify for unemployment because it's for folks who have been, terminated or lost their employment through no fault of their own. If it's a fault of your own, like, I don't know, at this point, it sounds like an OSHA violation. You don't qualify for unemployment. So that's definitely a thing. But even if through black magic they could qualify for unemployment, that's the fun thing. There's no more unemployment boost. There's no more unemployment boost because, half the legislation decided that, they weren't interested in pushing for that. And a good portion of governors had actually eliminated that here at the state level, here in Missouri. Our governor eliminated that 4 months ago. So, yeah, if you quit your job because you don't want to get vaccinated, you are up the creek some type of way. So that's definitely a thing. But yeah, so if there is a walkout because of this, first of all, those folks are they're not going to be on easy street, that's for certain. Now, fortunately, and I may have said this on social media the other day, so I'll just mention it on social media today in a video form. Fortunately, for those folks who do the walkout, now they do have the luxury of knowing that at least here in the state of Missouri, Governor Parson has made absolutely certain that there is a massive increase, at least an increase in general, overall, of hospitality jobs. So, not that the folks who probably voted for Governor Mike Parson are really actually consider those kinds of jobs to be real jobs. Those are starter jobs. That's why they pay starter wages. But he made sure that there are going to be plenty of those available for any of the people who are interested in walking out here, at least in the state of Missouri. So, best of luck to you. But, so if there is a massive walkout, which I don't see that happening, what I see is all the snowflakes just getting over it. I really do. I see protests. Obviously, they're going to be protests because people just can't manage their themselves or their character. We've seen that over the last year. It's just impossible for these people to be reasoned with whatsoever. But other than that, other than the protests and the demonstrations, I don't see there being a massive walkout. I see them swallowing their pride and their stupidity and getting vaccinated, which is going to be great overall for the markets. And it kind of looks like the market's feeling that love. So we'll jump right into some of that, the responses of here in just a second. But let's take a look here firstly at the sticks, man. Because I was taking a look at this the last couple of days. This is actually my first time looking at the sticks. Now, over the last week, we've seen nothing but just pain in the market. I mean, it's been crazy, right? Especially over the last 3 days. I mean, there's been fluctuation, massive volatility. But today, I mean, I'm looking at stocks here that haven't been moving very much at all. Do some wonderful, wonderful things. I mean, Affirm has been just going off the chain for quite a while, so that's nothing really, really too new here. But this is something that grabbed my attention. The good old Matterport has been sitting in the toilet for basically ever, right? I mean, seriously, just, if you bought in anywhere near the IPO, you're really feeling the pain here. But look at this, just recently, very recent. I mean, this is the day chart here, so we're looking at between, say the 27th the 27th of August. And then today, up 9.5%. I mean, are you kidding me right now? Like, what is going on with Matterport? Now, this very well could be because of the whole, the slowing down of the real estate boom. Whether a crash is coming, we'll see. At this point, it kind of seems like it's anybody's game. But with the slowing down of real estate, it's becoming harder and harder to get those prices where we need them to be. So I think that a lot of agents and homeowners are starting to figure out that, oh, wow, hey, maybe 3D scans, this might be a good thing. I don't know. I just maybe might have mentioned this a few months ago on social media and to a few business owners. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Matterport over the next few months here. Oh, honestly, we'll see what happens with Matterport over the next couple of years, because this kind of technology, this is the wave of the future. You don't believe me? Google. Okay, the idea that Street View exists is all you basically need to know. That this kind of technology is not going anywhere when it comes to real estate. So definitely something to look out for. Matterport overall. Let me pull this up here. So this is for the stick. I mean, roughly we've been waiting for 54 minutes, but they've been live streaming for 66, and we're still waiting. So that's a thing. All right. Well, anyway, I prepared a few options that we can look over together. So obviously, after Biden's big announcement yesterday, um, I don't know if you caught the part about. We'll just jump into that. So Biden mentioned legislators. He mentioned specifically governors and state governments, who have been pretty much just going against the grain, man. It's almost as if they don't want the pandemic to end, doing everything that they can to not decrease vaccinations, to make it hard for folks who are interested in getting vaccinated. Um, and so obviously there were responses, and right now we're going to take a look at some of those. So let's see. Obviously on Twitter, and this has been reposted on several different news outlets through Associated Press. But Governor Mike Parson commented back in his retort. The Biden administration's recent announcement seeking to dictate personal freedom and private business decisions is an insult to American principles of individual liberty and free enterprise. This heavy-handed action by the federal government is unwelcome in our state and has potentially dangerous consequences for working families. Vaccination protects us from serious illness, but the decision to get vaccinated is a private health care decision that should remain as such. My administration will always fight back against federal power grabs and government overreach that threatens to limit our freedoms. Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, you can't have it both ways, bro. I'm just saying, like, that's not a thing. Vaccination protects us from serious illness, but the decision to get vaccinated is a private healthcare decision and should remain as such. Okay, well, I mean, be that as it may, it's still a private healthcare decision. You don't have to work at a company that is interested in taking care of its employees. I mean, keep in mind, this is a governor who stood by and watched as the attorney general of the state that he's the governor of is suing school districts for their mask mandates. Okay? So, not really trying to get the sob story about government overreach when the governor's inactions for COVID, that's one thing. The governor getting on social media and starting guff with, healthcare, say managers and not just the hospitals themselves, but also the means by which, okay, his inactions and then the drama that was started by the governor, specifically by the governor, to skirt attention being placed on him because of his inactions, that's one thing. But standing by and just allowing an AG to do something so audacious is massive government overreach right here at the state level. You don't have to look too far. I mean, you don't have to look too far. But that's a thing. So obviously, Governor Mike Parson feels very, very strong about government overreach. Don't know why. Can't imagine why. So if you caught President Biden's remarks, obviously, I'm on Twitter now. Somebody screwed up and let me have an account. So my retort: aren't you the one who withheld funds from tens of thousands of Missouri working families in an obviously dangerous power grab to support a gambit that for 4 months, I forgot the 4, and you can't edit these, so you just screwed. That for 4 months, there we go. See, I don't even remember what I posted. That 4 months later is an obvious failure. Now, this is making reference to the unemployment boost getting cut. He announced that back in April. He cut them back in May. Our unemployment rate has increased since then. In fact, there was an immediate increase in the unemployment rate. The MOUR, Missouri Unemployment. If you like, you can take a look at Fred. Google Federal Reserve Economic Data. You can take a look at it yourself. Do not believe me. Do not take my word for it. I beg you, do not take my word for it. The federal unemployment data will show you that the unemployment rate has increased since then. It decreased, but now is still, higher than it was when he made his announcement. So you tell me, bro. You tell me. Yeah. Okay. So, continuing, perhaps you feel that Biden was addressing both you and A.G. Schmidt directly. Well, he was. He was. He was referring to Governor Parson and his inactivity and his basically, his lack of a reaction and his lack of proaction when it came to COVID. And he was referencing A.G. Schmidt for actually trying to stand in the way of local school districts from preventing the spread in their own schools. I mean, party of small government? Are you freaking kidding me? Like, there's nothing bigger than the government coming into your schools and saying, hey, look, we're in a pandemic. We're in a global health pandemic. I mean, I think at this point, the only people who actually think that COVID is some sort of a myth or is akin to the flu are like the furthest whack jobs out there. I think that's fair to say without like insulting any real people. Okay, that it's the real wacky whack jobs, who at this point feel that COVID is no worse than the flu. I mean, there are folks out there, and I get, I don't get it, but it's easier to understand why people would be concerned about the vaccine itself, even though it's FDA approved, even though it's been approved by the FDA for emergency use for months, for almost a year now. It's freaking September. It's almost freaking mid-September. But, that's a thing. But I get the idea that anyone may be concerned still. To a point. I think that's nuts. And I think that they're way too concerned and that they probably just need to chill out. But, and I had so much more. Oh, they're still just preparing for this stuff. All right. Well, that's cool. Anyhow, I get that folks would be concerned about some of that, to a point. To the point that anything actually happening? Or are we just hanging out still? They're really bad about that. Definitely a thing. Anyway, I get that people would be freaked out about that, to a certain level. But here's the thing. When it comes down to the folks who actually think this stuff is pretty much harmless, and they're
We're all thrilled to be sitting here at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, but here we are together. Okay, so I have two items for all of you at the top. Today, the White House Competition Council, which includes 8 cabinet secretaries and the chairs of 7 independent agencies, held its inaugural meeting here in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. The Council's first meeting focused on the actions agencies have already taken to promote competition and help lower costs for American families in just the 2 months since the President issued the Competition Executive Order. The members of the Competition Council have met every deadline in the executive order so far and delivered even more than what was required ahead of schedule. The agency's actions cover a broad range of industries and are aimed at reducing the prices people pay when they shop at the grocery store, when they travel to visit their loved ones, when they're choosing an internet plan, and when they purchase the prescription drugs they need. During the meeting, several agencies, including HHS, DOT, USDA, DOJ, and the FTC, briefed the other council members on the important work they've done. This includes a major effort by the Department of Transportation to get refunds for thousands of travelers whose flights were canceled due to COVID-19. DOT published a new report highlighting how it is helping secure refunds for thousands of those passengers, including by investigating the refund practices of 18 airlines, filing a formal complaint against Air Canada for refund delays, and getting 9 airlines to change their refund policies so that passengers can get refunded more quickly. This is just the beginning. Obviously, more work ahead. A quick preview of the week ahead. You know a lot of this already, but tomorrow the President and First Lady will honor and memorialize the lives lost with travel to all 3 sites of the 9/11 attacks, visiting New York City, Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon. On Monday, the President will travel to Boise, Idaho, where he will visit the National Interagency Fire Center. He will also head to Sacramento, California, to survey wildfire damage that has affected the region. Then the President will head to Long Beach, California, to participate in an event with Governor Gavin Newsom. On Tuesday, he will travel to Denver, Colorado, to participate in a Build Back Better infrastructure event. We'll have more details, I expect, over the coming days. More to come in the schedule for the week ahead. With that, Alex, go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. I was hoping you could comment on some new reporting from my colleague that health concerns have halted U.S.-bound flights of Afghan evacuees from 2 key countries. What was behind that? Is it COVID-related? Do you know how many Afghan refugees are affected?
Sure. Let me give you the information we have at this point. Operation Allies welcome flights into the United States have been temporarily paused at the request of the CDC and out of an abundance of caution because of 4 diagnosed cases of measles among Afghans who recently arrived in the United States. These individuals are being quarantined in accordance with public health guidelines, and the CDC has begun full contact tracing. All arriving Afghans are currently required to be vaccinated for measles as a condition of entry into the United States, and critical immunizations, including MNR, are being administered for Afghans at military bases in the United States. And we are also, we are also exploring measures to vaccinate people while they are still overseas, so that's something we're looking into. But it was, again, a step recommended by the CDC out of an abundance of caution given 4 measles cases.
And then I wanted to ask about a change in tones in the administration when it comes to blaming the unvaccinated. In July, you were actually asked about when Governor Ivey said it's time to start blaming unvaccinated folks, and you said, quote, you didn't think it was, quote, our role to place blame, and it was, quote, not the role of the federal government to blame. But that's pretty much what President Biden did yesterday. So what has shifted, in these months that you've decided to take a more aggressive tone?
Well, I don't think it will surprise you. I wouldn't characterize his speech in exactly those words or that terminology. What you heard the President convey yesterday is the next steps that he is taking, using every lever of government to reduce his sicknesses, to reduce hospitalizations, to protect more people, and save more lives. I will say that he was channeling the frustration that millions of people across this country are feeling who are vaccinated, that many governors and elected officials have also shared their frustration over. And as is the case, it is also true that there has also been a growing frustration among people. So if you look at the trends over the last couple of months, we didn't anticipate, I will say, that when there was a vaccine approved by under a Republican president, that the Republican president took, that there would be such hesitation, opposition, vehement opposition in some cases from so many people of his own party in this country. We didn't anticipate that. It's also true that there were many people in this country who weren't vaccinated who said, I'm just waiting for the FDA to approve the vaccine. That happened several weeks ago. There's still 80 million people who were unvaccinated. And we've also seen during this time the Delta variant, a transmissible variant, pose greater risks, put more people in hospitals, including kids. So that is why people across the country are frustrated, who are vaccinated, and certainly the President was channeling that yesterday.
And then when More quick
And
one on
meanwhile,
OSHA. Can you talk about enforcement of the vaccine mandate for businesses? We've already seen a lot of evidence that OSHA is overtaxed. There was an IG report that suggested, even though there's been more OSHA complaints, there's been fewer investigations. So will the administration be providing more resources to OSHA to help them to implement this mandate? How will it work?
That's a great question, Alex. Obviously, the President just announced the steps yesterday. There'll be a rulemaking process that's going to take a little bit of time, and certainly whatever resources they need, I'm sure the President will want them to have.
Go ahead. Just to follow up on the enforcement of that, realistically, I mean, how long could it take? Some experts say it could take months, and the effects of this new rule, especially for companies, may not be felt in time for the Delta wave. Do you have an estimation on how long it could take?
I don't have an estimation for you today, but there's clearly an urgency here, and we want to ensure that rulemaking proceeds rapidly, as quickly as possible. I'll also note, though, that there are a number of companies that have already put requirements in place. United Airlines, Tyson Foods, Southwest, Houston Methodist, the huge hospital system was one of the biggest ones that did this early. They had a varying number of days for implementation, but certainly we're going to put every resource in the federal government to get this going rapidly. We've also seen announcements. Southwest Airlines announced today it was taking the next steps toward full compliance. And Business Roundtable issued a statement welcoming the President's announcement. Certainly this will be up to a number of private sector companies. Our expectation and hope is they will take these steps on their own, and then we will continue to implement for those who are not complying.
Another question on the Republicans that have come out, obviously criticizing the new requirements. 19 Republican governors have said that they plan to fight this. Has the White House been in contact with any of those governors who have criticized this since the President made this announcement yesterday?
No.
I don't have any engagements or calls to read out for you. We are in touch with range of governors, Democratic and Republican, every week, if not more frequently, about a range of topics, including our efforts to address the pandemic. We're also in touch with health officials up and down the lines in these states who are often implementing these plans and policies.
One last question for you. Just an appeals court just ruled in favor of Governor Ron DeSantis and his administration, saying the state cannot enforce a ban on strict mask mandates. Just a response to that, are you concerned that this is going to put more children at risk in that state?
Well, one of the steps the President announced yesterday is that we have the funding, the resources, and the intention of having the back of leaders in school districts, superintendents, and others who do the right thing by students. And that includes putting in place mask requirements and other requirements that will keep them safe.
Go ahead.
Jen, with the 9/11 commemorations, can you tell me what you are doing to sort of go back and address the huge, massive wave of hate crimes that we saw against Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, and those who were taken to be either Arab or Muslim? So what is the White House's plan to address that component of the history of the aftermath of the attacks?
Well, first I would say that ensuring that we are advocating for equity, that we are speaking out, that we are taking actions against hate crimes, verbal abuse of any kind, against any group, is certainly central to what we in this administration and what the President believes in. I'd note that the President will be releasing a video from him shortly later this afternoon, and one of the messages that he's going to convey is about the importance of unity. And as we reflect back on 9/11 and look back to that time 20 years ago, and the President was talking about this the other day with some of us and conveying that he remembers that day being on the train on the way to Washington. The first thing he wanted to do was to go to the floor of the Capitol and convey to the American people that this is a time to come together. And so that will certainly be central to his message. It's not just words. I'm not suggesting that, but that is certainly what you will hear him say in this video and what we'll continue to convey. I would say, though, that there will continue to be efforts and actions by the Department of Justice, by agencies across government to fight hate crimes, to speak out against them, and to take any actions in our power to do that.
Can I just follow up on that, just in terms of the unity question?
Protect more people. We are always looking to protect and save lives. Obviously, he made a significant and bold announcement yesterday, so I have anything to predict or preview.
That was preventing the president from issuing
Our preference role as the President of the United States to continue to take steps to
variant, given hospitalizations, and ultimately to save lives, as you were saying.
On the steps that we have been taking. So we mandated or testing in the federal government. We took obviously additional step yesterday. There were a number of private sector companies, many we encouraged, who came out and put in place mandates and requirements. This is building on the steps we had taken. But again, there are a range of factors that have happened over the last several months, and it's only natural that we continue to look for more ways to save lives, given we're at the point where clearly we're in the most vaccine-resistant population. And we've also seen, let me just say, we've also seen it works. We've seen companies put in place vaccine requirements. We've seen the impact of those and the number of people at United Airlines, at other companies get vaccinated within the timeline that it's required. And, you know, that's something that made sense.
Is the administration considering offering federal funding to states who mandate this at the state level as well?
I don't have anything else to preview or predict for you in terms of additional next steps. Obviously, we made a big, bold announcement yesterday, so I don't have anything new to preview for you. Go ahead.
Considering the critical role of the FDA, why has President Biden not yet nominated an FDA director?
He's eager to find the right person to fill that role. I would note that just like any agency, there are hundreds of people who are career employees, the backbone of the federal government, who are working every day to get the job done, and these agencies certainly continue to function at a high level, even without a director, even if his preference, of course, would be to have a confirmed director in place.
And on another topic, does the White House want to see a debt limit increase in the continuing resolution to fund the government later this month?
The White House, we continue to believe that Democrats and Republicans should do what they have done 80 times, which is to raise the debt limit, and that is what we are working toward. But I'm not going to get into what vehicle it may look like. That's certainly something we'll have discussions with Congress and congressional leaders, and but we'll leave that to them. Go ahead.
Drilling down on the legal implications or the legal underpinnings of this decision for this OSHA regulation, can you talk about what type of legal analysis happened before the announcement yesterday? Was that done out of the White House Office of Counsel, or was that done in the Labor Department? And also, is part of the reason why there's a testing opt-out, is that because there was a thought that would allow this rule to be better able to stand up to legal scrutiny?
So we don't actually anticipate, I mean, this is a law. So Congress passed a law in 1970, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, and the reason the Department of Labor and OSHA is able to take this strong step to protect Americans from COVID is that Congress passed that law. Yesterday's announcement by the Department of Labor is proceeding under that law. And the law basically requires the Department of Labor take action when it finds grave risk to workers. And certainly a pandemic that killed more than 600,000 people qualifies as grave risk to workers. And so if the Secretary determines workers are in grave danger, he has an obligation to issue an emergency temporary standard. That's exactly what he did.
So was there an official analysis done or was it just a decision the Department of Labor said?
Clearly, everything we do, we obviously review legally. Every bill we support, every policy announcement we make. But I think that's pretty clear. It doesn't even take a legal degree to understand that.
Just on another topic, the call with President Xi of China. How long was that? And also, did they discuss meeting in person at the G20?
It was about 90 minutes, the call. The President has spent a lot of time with President Xi in the past, as he's talked about publicly, and he drew on that shared experience in this call. So the call was very familiar. It was candid. He didn't avoid areas of disagreement, but the tone was not lecturing, nor was it condescending. It was respectful. It was 90 minutes. I don't have anything to preview for you in terms of future meetings. I would note that this call was about keeping the channels of communication open. And what we've seen is that the importance here is about engaging Xi directly at the leader level due to the centralization of power and the power that's in his hands. Hence, that was the importance of the call. It covered a range of topics. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. After the rule is implemented, do you know how long companies will have to comply?
That will be, I believe, part of the rulemaking process. So I expect we'll have more on that once that's completed.
Do you have anything to share about how you landed on employers with 100 employees or more? Why not the entire workforce?
Well, it was an assessment made by the Department of Labor and the Secretary of Labor. I will say it obviously impacts a huge number of people, so we think it will have an enormous impact on businesses, on companies, on communities, and the workforce, but you know, it was a determination made by the Labor Department.
And then can you talk about the enforcement body, how robust that's going to be, since we're talking about a huge number of businesses? How are you going to make sure they're complying? And I know Jeff Dine said the fine could be up to $14,000 per violation. Mm-hmm. What is a violation?
Again, these are all good questions. This has to be included in the rulemaking process. It's about up to be specific, $13,600 per violation, but this is all a part of what would be determined in the coming weeks.
And one more on masks. Public health experts, including the former Surgeon General today, Jerome Adams, have said it's not just about vaccinations, that the moves to end masking back in May were premature. Do you have a response to that? I'm sorry. And also, in light of that, are there any efforts coming up to talk about masks again? Because the last we heard, it was, you know, it's kind of confusing that you only need to do it sometimes if it's high transmissibility, which is now the case, I think, nationwide. So do you have a response?
The President, I don't have a response to the former Surgeon General. I will say that factually, back in May, when we made that announcement, the Delta variant was about 1% of cases. Obviously, things have changed since that period of time. It's incredibly transmissible, and obviously, as we've noted, even as vaccines became widely available to the country, there are still today 80 million people who are not vaccinated. So our responsibility is to continue to take steps that will protect people, save lives, and that's what we're focused on. The President did talk about masks yesterday and fines on airplanes and what would be required in that regard. Also, masking as it relates to schools certainly protects children and kids from transmissibility and the spread of the virus. And what I would say is we do agree it's not just about vaccines. Okay, I don't know what's happening. Okay.
Has something to say about
okay,
that.
It's okay. No worries.
Turn your phone off.
I didn't know if that was a video game or an alarm or if we should evacuate. Okay.
That seems urgent. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. To follow up on the call with President Xi last night, exactly 2 weeks ago when the intel community came up empty trying to figure out the origins of COVID, the President said information about the origins of this pandemic exists in the People's Republic of China. When he talked to the President of China last night, did he press him like he said he was to?
Well, I'm not going to go into a list of every topic discussed. That was a very dramatic entry to that answer, but I'll start again. I'm not going to go into every list of every topic discussed. They did discuss a range of transnational issues, including COVID-19, and understanding its origins is, of course, a primary concern for this administration. We continue to support Phase 2 of the WHO's investigation in China and call on China to allow further studies of COVID-19's origins in China. I will also note that one of the topics the President's also discussed is the importance of being able to have private discussions between the two leaders. This is in contrast to some of the other interactions we've had at lower levels with the PRC. And so, yes, it was a topic raised, but I'm not going to go into further detail.
So we should understand that to mean that the President did ask him to let international investigators in to get this information that he says China has.
We have conveyed that many times publicly. I think they know that that's our position and view.
But not publicly. On this 90-minute phone call, they talked about it.
Again, Peter, this is a topic that we have said, conveyed many times at many levels. I'm just not going to have more on the call to read out for you.
Okay, and then why is it that you're trying to require anybody with a job or anybody who goes to school to get the COVID-19 vaccine, but you are not requiring that of migrants that continue walking across the southern border into the country?
Well, look, our objective is to get as
Because the
many people
Delta variant of
vaccinated across the country
COVID-19
as
doesn't
humanly
come from
possible.
Mexico,
And so
it comes
the
from
president's
Missouri.
announcement
Stop
yesterday
it.
was an effort to empower businesses, to give businesses the tools to protect their workforces. That's exactly what we did. But certainly we want everybody to get vaccinated, and more people are vaccinated, whether they are migrants or whether they are workers, protects more people in the United States.
But it's a requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people. It is not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct. Go ahead.
We know that with enforcement, employers who refuse to implement these vaccine rules are subject to fines. But what about employees who refuse to comply with the requirements? Will federal contractors or employees be fired? And is that the recommendation for private sector employees who don't comply?
Well, again, there needs to be rulemaking that will take place as it relates to the OSHA requirements, and that is the one that applies to private sector companies of individuals 100 people and over. We have our own rules in the federal government, which are applied through different statutes. So yes, you're right. There would be counseling. We are certainly going to take every step to convey the safety and the efficacy of these vaccines to federal employees. But certainly, vaccination is required for contractors and employees, and the president was pretty clear about that yesterday.
Ultimately, people could get fired.
Correct.
And then on another topic, rapid testing.
Don't worry,
in
you can always work in the
rapid
bowling
tests
alley.
are cheap, pretty widely available. In the U.S., it still can be expensive and hard to find them. Why is that, and why hasn't the administration been able to address some of those issues before this latest plan rolled out?
Well, I would say we just started to address some of those big issues yesterday because we recognized, as you said, that this was a hindrance for many people. Now, we did take steps to include funding for testing in the American Rescue Plan that has been applied in schools and communities across the country. But what we've seen is an increased interest in rapid tests and at-home tests, and we're being responsive to that as well. And this kind of goes back to the comments of Jerome Adams. I mean, testing is also a component that probably we don't talk about enough, or the world doesn't talk about enough, because it is important and it's a way to make sure people are protected. We know the demand for rapid tests has more than doubled in recent weeks, and so we're also being responsive to that. So it's nearly $2 billion investment in rapid at-home tests, 280 million tests at home. We're also going to send 25 million free at-home rapid tests to the 1,400 community health centers, and top retailers are going to be selling them. So we tried to take a number of steps, bold steps from the federal government and working with the private sector to make them more rapidly available. Go ahead.
Jen, what does the White House say to those businesses? Some business groups are expressing this concern that this requirement that they either have their employees be vaccinated or that they be tested is ultimately a burden on the businesses. So what does the White House say about that burden? Because it's certainly a costly liability, some say.
Well, the vaccines are free and available to everyone in the country, so that shouldn't be costly or available. Or
given an opt-out. So in other words, if they say they want to do the weekly tests, you couldn't say earlier who would pay for that test. Businesses are saying, how do we get these tests to our employees? What if our employees don't want to pay for it themselves? Do we have to pay for it? What does that cost us at the end of the day, given that they have the right to opt out?
They have to make that decision themselves. It's certainly more cost-effective to require vaccines. They may not decide to do that. That's up to them to decide to do.
So ultimately the burden's on that business to make that decision or just swallow the cost.
Correct. Most of these businesses can absolutely afford it, and what we're talking about here is saving
if you
people's
have more
lives
than
and
100
protecting
employees,
them.
you can
I'd also say
afford
there
it.
are a
If
number
you
of
have
companies
more
that
than
have
100 and you can't
have
afford it,
already
you
put
are doing
requirements
something
in place.
completely wrong
It makes for safer
already.
workplaces. It makes people want to come back to the workplace. It makes for healthier and happier employees who know that they are safe when they go to work, and that's a cost as well.
Obviously, testing is cheaper for a place like United. They can afford it more easily than a business that's only 100 people big. That's why I asked.
I understand, but again, vaccines. Requiring that is a way is free and shouldn't cost businesses any money.
Understood.
Right, and you've got the money if you have
right now.
100
Can you give us a
employees.
better understanding? How will that work? I know
ridiculous.
how you said there'll be religious exemptions that would exist for federal workers and the like. How about for mega churches, other religious organizations in this country of more than 100 employees? What right do they have under these yet to be created rules?
Again,
No
the rules are
exemptions.
being created, but We have obviously had religious exemptions even for federal employees. I'm sure that will be a factor taken into consideration, but I can't make a prediction of what the final rules will look like.
The intention is, I presume, that if you're a religious organization, you say, hey, we have to do this in our organization.
Again, this is going to be for OSHA to determine as they're doing the rulemaking in the Department of Labor, so I will not get ahead of that process.
Let me ask you about 9/11 if I can. The President, you said his remarks are going to be coming out in some form. His reflections will be coming out in some form over the course of this day. Can you sort of pull back the curtain a bit for us about his preparations in advance of tomorrow, as best you can, what conversations, phone calls he's had with those who may have lost loved ones, with past presidents, with foreign leaders, just as he prepares for his reflections? And then separately, why will he not be delivering remarks of some kind tomorrow?
Well, I would say first, on the second question, the President felt it was important to visit each of these 3 sites to commemorate the lives lost, the sacrifices made on a day that has impacted millions of people across the country, but certainly many people in those communities. In order to do that, he's attending a ceremony where several other former presidents and prominent officials are going to be hearing the names of those lives that were lost around that period of time. Is in a moment where there's a lengthy speaking program, and then he's going to be laying wreaths to commemorate the lives and honor those whose lives have lost. We're releasing the video today because we want you to hear from him, and he wants the American people to hear from him directly on what 9/11 means to him 20 years later, and so that's why we're doing it in advance of his trip tomorrow.
And then to the first part of that question, for the conversations he's had with, has he had conversations with Delawareans, with other Americans who lost loved ones? What have these days leading up to 9/11 looked like for him as he's prepared for these reflections?
I'm happy to check if there's been any conversations that fall into that category. Absolutely. Go ahead.
So we've reported that some members of the cabinet will be meeting to discuss trade issues, including a new probe on allegedly illegal subsidies. Can you confirm that? And how does that meeting dovetail with the call with Xi last night, in which the 2 leaders talked about preventing competition from turning into conflict? Would a new trade probe be an escalation of hostilities?
Well, first I would say that certainly economic topics were a part of the discussion last night, but they were not a major part of the